and welcome back to Catapult Your Career, where I talk through all things careers with various individuals. Today, I'm going to talk about a topic that I've grown more and more interested in, and really kind of changed my perception and has allowed me to change other people's perceptions as well. And that is the world of the military. And I've got none other than a really good friend in John Stephenson with us here today. How are you, mate?
I'm all good, Michael. How's yourself?
I'm very well. I'm very well, thank you. All the better for seeing you. It's really, helpful you've been here, John, because I think, like I said, I think even my perception of the military and kind of how people act and all the rest of it has completely changed. And I think other people have a warped personality or perception.
Hmm.
And the biggest thing that struck out for me is just how humble and how grateful, kind of the people we serve, and we're going to dive into a bit more into that. But just for those who are listening, John, let's start just very quickly where you are now, I suppose. Who are you, and I suppose what do you do?
Yeah, so at the minute, I'm the managing director of the Forces Transition Group, and effectively we support people who there's a little bit more to it than this, but we support people who are going through service and coming out of service. So we call it
Mm,
transition,
mm,
um, and and creating a pathway that they understand that creates a great future, not just for them, but for their families as well.
mm. Yeah, I think that's a key. I think that's a key piece, and I suppose the way you do that for the FTG, I think it's just a real like holistic service. It's not.
Yeah.
I know you've done that a bit with even blue light workers as well, and it's not just you often see more and more, and I found at the jobs fairs you see a lot of partners now kind of rocking up and turning up and getting
Yeah.
support. I don't know if you've noticed that at all, but
Yeah, it is nice. And because it's so open, we even at the last event they brought one of their babies. They
mm,
just had a baby, so they were switching when they were doing their interviews, and the baby would go to the dad and then go to the mum. And it kind of shows you the community feel we've got, which is really important, and it's why it works.
yeah, no, absolutely. But obviously that's not wasn't always the case. You had a life before then. So and clearly that's kind of originated from the military, and maybe we'll dive into maybe what kind of made you set up FTG. But before even the military, before we kind of get to that, I want to go even further. What was like Little John? Like what was Little John like? What did he do?
Yeah, well, I mean, Little John was very little John. I was always small,
Hmm.
tiny, in fact, with big blonde hair. And but I was very good at football, if I
Yeah,
don't mind saying so myself.
yeah,
And perhaps if I'd have been big, I may have made it in the world of football.
yeah.
I've played football all through my life, but I had a great upbringing. My mum and dad were amazing. My dad was, this massive firefighter. He spent 40 years um, in the world of the fire brigade.
Hmm.
And my mum was, I suppose, in those olden days, the mum who would stay at home and
Yeah.
would make your tea and make sure everything was done. And of course, I loved all of that. And my mum was the soft touch though, so if I didn't want to go to school, I would definitely wait till my dad was on shift and tell me mum I wasn't going to school. Um, I didn't like school too much,
Hmm.
generally because I was small. There was quite a lot of kind of, I suppose, bullying.
Yeah.
I suppose it's what happens in schools.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe there was no real malicious intent in it and things like that, but it wasn't the greatest time. Um, and yeah, the schooling years education wasn't for me. I was a joker rather than the person who knuckled down. And I was always in the top band, so clearly had some um, educational qualities, but
Yeah.
I didn't leave school with many qualifications. Let's say that.
Hmm.
Uh, and very quickly realized that the world of education wasn't for me. Kind of did a BTEC at college and then left and went into a job as a YTS,
Yeah.
a warehouse for a company called the Co-op,
Hmm.
and actually did well there. It kind of, over the next 4 years between 17 and 21, I ended up on a YTS all the way to becoming a deputy manager in a store. So I showed I had the aptitude to be able to move forward and do well in my life. And then one day I was just walking along the street in South Shields, and there was this huge giant of an infantry soldierman
Hmm.
um, standing in the doorway of the careers office. Some For some reason I walked in, and days later I was gone.
Crikey. I say this in jest, but you clearly weren't. You always say I'm just a thick northerner. Well, you clearly aren't that thick because you did quite well. But just for other people listening, what's a YTS?
So a youth it was called a youth training scheme in the olden days. So
Nice.
you got paid £40 a week,
Yeah.
um, which if you think about that now, you know you couldn't
Yeah.
go down the pub and have 5 pints for £40. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you survived on it, and it was an in to being in business.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say because of your football background, you hear a lot of YTS now with footballers, like
Mm.
they're cleaning boots and stuff like that. So it's good to know. But now then going towards obviously you see that kind of tall chap, kind of presence, walked in the careers office. What was it? What did you hear that made you think maybe this is the place for me?
I honestly don't know. I just this guy who I have no idea who he was just
Mm,
looked like an inspiration.
mm,
Um, it perhaps isn't what he said; it was the way he looked.
mm,
And I thought he looks like he's got some kind of stature, and he means and he means something. Whereas I felt, what do I actually mean? What am I actually really doing? Do I
mm,
want to be working in the back end of a shop for the rest of my life?
mm-hmm.
Type thing. So I went in, and basically they tried to get me to join the infantry, and because I'd gone in without doing any revision, I didn't know what the infantry was
Yeah,
or what I ended up joining, which was the Royal Signals. I think if I'd have joined the infantry, I'd have probably left the military because it digging holes and living in mud all day and being freezing cold, it was probably not where I would want to be.
yeah,
But luckily, the second time when I went in to do the signing of the oath of allegiance, before I did that, the person that was there was somebody from a technical background, and I did, I said I had no education. I did pass maths and English, and he
yeah.
said, "Why are you joining the infantry?" And I said, "Oh, that guy told me."
Mm,
He said, "No, no." He says, "You'll be much better in a technical." And again, I didn't know, so
mm.
I ended up in the Royal Signals, and 3 days later, I was in Scotland doing a test.
Wow, crikey. And it's interesting for like um I always find it really interesting speaking to you about the military and speaking about people's careers
Hmm.
because I also like I don't know if I've ever told you this actually. I actually did want to join the military when I was young, and my mum just didn't let me. She flat out just literally told like refused me and said no, you're not going. And I we had a few like tantrums like for a couple of days, and that was it. That was the end of it. But like if I went, I suppose the key thing for me is also like knowing where to join. Because as an outsider, you just see the military, and obviously you've seen the inside, and it's you didn't really have like right if you do this you could go and progress here, or if you do this you could progress. It was just like no, you're technical. I think you should go here, mate, and that was it.
Yeah, and I think they've lost that now. There's
Mm,
not very many careers officers. It's a lot of it's online.
mm,
Um, so speed is everything, and the military probably loses out a lot on that. I know that there is plans to speed this process up because I was in the military within a week.
mm,
I had no way of turning back. I was gone. I was in. I was done.
mm-hmm.
My dynamic had no way of changing. But if you spend a year trying to integrate somebody into the system,
Yeah,
and in that year things change, lives change,
absolutely.
people meet people, children are born,
Yeah,
injuries happen, all different kinds of things happen in people's lives in 12 months. That's where the military loses most of their people, which means they're always going to have a recruitment problem if they don't reduce or release the ease to get in.
understood. And now, if I know we go to like your career, and obviously share only what you feel share can feel comfortable sharing. Tell us, how long were you there? Give us a bit of an overview. What did you kind of do, I suppose, in your time?
Yeah, well, I served for 22 years or just over 22 years. I had the best time in the world in the military. Went everywhere. Because I was good at football, I very quickly understood that if you played sport in the military, especially when I joined, it's perhaps not as much now, but because there's less people. But when I joined, there was a lot of people in the military. For example, a troop that I joined would have probably been 100 strong.
Hmm.
Now, if you got your troop outside as a troop staff sergeant, there'd be 10 people stood there.
Wow.
So that's how much it's waned. Um, and that's how busy the military, is. Everyone's just away doing all different kinds of things. So sport, they realized I was good at football, so I just played football. Of course, everyone who didn't play football or sport hated the footballers,
Yeah, of
but I
course.
didn't care because I was never at work.
Yeah.
Um, Now, when I joined the military, if you think about Sky, the company where they put a mast up,
Yep.
it's kind of what I did. We
Hmm.
used to put a mast up somewhere and there'd be a mast on the other side, and then it used to connect, and everyone in the different areas could talk to each other, the senior leaders, that kind of stuff, or get information to different areas within the military. So that's it's a bit more technical than that, but
Yeah.
that's what it was. Um, and for the first, I suppose, 6 years, 7 years of my life, although I went to Kosovo, which I had no idea what it was,
Hmm.
um, if I had to fire the rifle in jest, it would have been a problem, because all I was doing was playing football. The first 6, 7 years were just a a collage of alcohol
Hmm.
and playing football. I actually got married, had both my children in those first 2 years, and so the life was amazing. It was just nobody could touch you. It didn't matter what you were doing. It was just brilliant. And in that time, I went to Germany
Hmm.
and spent 5 years in Germany, which was one of the best times of my life. And that's where Alicia and Jasmine started growing up, um, and where I met a lot of my good friends now. Because it
Hmm.
was the best time, I'm very close to those people. Whereas I met lots of people in the military throughout, but I'm not so close to those.
Hmm.
Um, After Germany, it got a bit serious. So as you start to go through the ranks, then you're expected to do your job, which
Yeah.
came as a bit of a shock. So um, I ended up in a training wing with no training qualification. So I'm now expecting to train people.
Hmm.
And really, I was just sent on loads and loads of courses,
Yeah.
weapons courses, map reading, drill, all these things. What I found is I was good at it.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't want to do it, I was good at it. I came back, and then all of a sudden, people realised that, and I got posted to ATR Lichfield. Within the first 10 years, I'd gone through basic training, walking through this door in South Shields. I was now training people. So I was
Mm.
this infantry soldier.
Mm.
That was amazing because I could control my life for 2 years. So you know exactly what you're doing in a training environment because it's a 10-week course, 10-week course, 10-week course. So it's really easy. And then you start getting promoted into senior levels, and I became a sergeant and a staff sergeant, and then I was a sergeant major, and all this happened pretty quickly. And then I hit the pinnacle of my career, which is to be the regimental sergeant major, at my 19-year point. Effectively, he's the number one soldier.
Hmm.
So that was unbelievable. Yet the most lonely job I did.
Hmm.
Nobody wants to talk to you. Everyone's scared of you.
Hmm.
Um, there's a real disciplined side to that. Although that wasn't me, I never shouted in my military career ever.
Hmm.
My belief is when you shout at clever people, they just don't listen to you.
Yeah.
And in a technical world, I preferred if they made a mistake to try and work out why.
Yeah.
It didn't mean they didn't get punished in the same ways and
Yeah.
things, but actually shouting at them straight in one ear and out the other give me no hold on that individual. So, and then I became a regimental or a regional, sorry, career manager. So I was in charge after that of everyone's careers, how they got promoted, how they left the military, and that's where the ironic piece came in, because I'd never left.
Mm.
So all of the information I was passing to people leaving was duff.
Mm.
Now, it took me many years to realize that. But actually, my last year or so in the military before I left, I probably did more damage to those people that left the military than I did good, simply because I just thought I was telling them the right thing and I wasn't. And that is a pinch point problem in the military and still is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I lost the love at that point. Um, I lived in the north, and they sent me to Bath
Hmm.
for another posting, and I decided I wasn't going to travel 7 hours on a Friday and 7 hours on a Sunday and not see my family on a week. So I left. I left on good terms. I didn't want to be toxic to the military,
Hmm.
and that was my military career. The best time in my life. Some of the most amazing people all over the world, from Iraq to Afghanistan to Kosovo to Italy to no matter what, you went everywhere. Um, and effectively, I haven't got a bad word to say about the military. Thus, my love for making sure people who do leave don't leave all of that great stuff behind and become something like a society problem, something
Hmm.
that they don't want to be. They should and do deserve to have an amazing life after the military as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to kind of share that. I think it'll be insightful for some people, even who know you or know of you. They might not know absolutely everything. Um, and I think we're going to revisit that regional career manager piece when we come and talk about the FTG. But just to, I suppose, briefly talk about what was it like then being the other side? So in terms of, you've left the military, you left on good terms, but you said that enough's enough for me. What was it like, that first day, first week, first month out of uniform?
Yeah, it wasn't good. I always felt because of my service and where I got to that I actually meant something
Hmm.
to the military. I quickly realized when I was out that nobody cared. It was a number. I've come to terms with that now, but at the time you don't because you've given all your life to it. You
Hmm.
know, I would have done the military before my family,
Mm.
100%. And that's what you're taught.
Mm.
Military first, family close second. And it's policy.
Mm.
But I lived that, and my family will tell you that.
Mm.
And of course, I've given more back to them now. But those the first 2 years were horrendous. The first year I struggled to get a job, but did get a job. I was an absolute nightmare. I was in a managerial position within a company called Tool Station,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, and they must have hated me because everything was 1 million miles an hour.
Mm.
Now, in my mind, it worked because we made profit. Everything was great. Everything was in green. The whole thing was immaculate. But all those poor people in there didn't know where they stood. They were just flying around, and I got rid of anyone who got in my way.
Mm.
Just
Mm.
sacked them.
Mm.
And I quickly realised the people above me were rubbish,
Mm.
and they were scared of that as well. So quickly I left.
Mm. 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 And then was
Um,
it was it from there where I suppose was it from there where kind of you started to think about FTG? Where did
um,
FTG kind of enter the picture?
it My next few jobs were within financial issues and areas and things, and they became quite toxic. Um, really very toxic. Some of the people in those businesses were not nice.
Mm.
And I had effectively written on a wall with a series of A1 or A3 size pieces of paper.
Hmm.
I started with one piece of paper and ended up with five and made this huge mind map of how I believed that you could really, go into the military really and sell finance, but actually do loads for everybody and actually help everybody leave. Now that's not what we do now, but that's what the picture was in my head. And one day, this random person came in who had done some work for Chelsea Football Club. It was this high flying guy, apparently. I don't really know who he was. And he just said, "What's that on the wall?" And so I told him, and he said, "That'll never work." So I just took it down. And ultimately, I left that company a week later.
Mm.
I've never met that guy again, but I would kind of say 6 years down the line that if he is listening, this has worked.
Mm. You have to be careful giving away your secrets, John, because now I know how to motivate you. So I can say, "Oh, that won't work, John," and then I'll get you. But like, I suppose the word entrepreneur and entrepreneurism gets chucked around a lot. I'm kind of aiming, myself to try and get to that space and kind of run a business like you. But a true version of an entrepreneur, in my mind, is someone who invents a solution to a problem they see in the world.
Hmm.
And that is exactly what you've done. You've seen a problem in the world. It's from a real life situation from your story. And you thought, what can I do to change this? I can't see anything in the world that's currently helping the solution. So I'm going to be the change. And it's easy to say that. It's even easier to think it. But it's another thing to actually do it and to put the graft. And, we were speaking even before today about the graft and hard work it takes to get to where
Hmm.
you are, but no doubt how to kind of get it going forward in the future. And I think everyone realizes we all work hard, but I don't think people really realize the how much they see the goals, they see the trials and tribulations on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
but they don't see the amount of hours you put behind this and the
Mm.
drive for why you did it,
Yeah. Well, I appreciate those words. And being an entrepreneur is hard.
Hmm.
Um, starting with nothing and creating something. It has both sides. There's nothing more satisfying. But again, it comes with a lot of damage
Yeah.
towards people like your family because you don't. People say you've got to take time out. You've got to do these. You don't stop thinking about it because
Hmm.
it's a brand new concept, a new business. You can't let one day go by without doing something, or it just starts to fall the other way. And I suppose my drive and the way that I was in the military, and to a certain extent, what I went into businesses with when I left the military, that drive still remained in me. That's what's made it work. Now I've got brilliant people around me, like my wife, my children, yourself, some great other veterans, who have come on board, some that even aren't part of the FTG yet. These are the people that really make this work now. Is those are the ones that support, they get it, they buy it, they sell it for us.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now it's not got to the point where it just makes money by itself, but it's one hell of a lot easier now.
Yeah, I bet. And you talked a little bit about that journey. It's a really good point I wanted to reflect on for you. So, you know, I think everyone thinks it's sunshine and rainbows, and I think you've done a really good job of actually painting the reality of what it was like in the military, transitioning. You didn't have a smooth transition yourself, even getting to this point with the business. Was there a time when you ever thought with the FTG that you doubted yourself and thought, you know what, enough's enough, I'm gonna jack it in?
Um, I think in the early days it wasn't FTG, it was ILG, so it was an idea the same as what we got now, but it was to do the insurance piece. When COVID hit,
Hmm.
which was very early in the idea, there was a point then when I kind of thought, can this work? But the reason it worked is because I just pivoted straight to
Mm.
social media, um, and somehow it worked. And I think the military system helped with that because the military system can't pivot; it's too big. So all of a sudden, I was online, and
Hmm.
people were still leaving the military, but they couldn't use the military to leave.
Yeah.
They had to go somewhere, and we had this huge influx. And it was them weeks when that started to happen and it started to get busy, we realized that this is going to be huge and it's not stopped.
Mm. Yeah.
So the early days, because of an outcome, COVID, perhaps, since then, not a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. And but it is still good. Again, I appreciate you being honest there because I think people see how it's going from strength to strength, but they don't see what the stuff you've gone through, I suppose. And I even had it more at a micro level. I pale in comparison to the size of your business, which is almost nice for me because it's nice to be so close and see how inspiring it is for me. But I have people that come to me or my wife Jess and will say, "Oh, it's so amazing what Michael did and this and that," and sometimes not in a rude way or with malice. They say, "Oh, it must be great for him." And Jess has a little giggle because she thinks they have no idea how much work and how much stuff has been put into this. And like you said, last night I was like supposed to go to bed and I'm still up an hour and a half later thinking about ideas and getting my journal out and writing it down and stuff like that. So it's great. It's great to share that. I suppose that, but I suppose for me, just to really revisit as we start to kind of go more to near the end of today, I suppose those regional career managers, it's a real full circle moment for you, this, of you being one and giving advice. and actually on reflection thinking it's not been too helpful. Whereas now you sit here amongst people, amongst peers, and feel like you're really now changing people's lives, not just their lives but their families. How do you think we could maybe utilize them, or you kind of go back in terms of helping the military to have a more smoother transition going forward?
Yeah, well, the career managers are always going to be amazing at helping people in the military.
Mm,
They've lived the life and they understand the rank structure and the reporting and all those great things. And they actually sit sometimes within a unit, but half in Glasgow in Scotland, um, where they can monitor and make people's careers happen. The problem is when it comes to leaving, when you've never experienced the emotion of the real world and leaving and that transition and family and the stress and the anxiety, there's nothing you can say to that person when you've
mm,
never felt that that's going to do any good. So what I would say to RCMOs, to leaders, to RSMs, to sergeant majors, to anybody in the military that is helping people, because that's what they should be, to leave, not stopping them from leaving, help them to leave. Once they've made their mind up, don't get in their way. What you're actually doing is stopping them. What you should do is use the military system because there's a system there to do that. But don't stop them from using all the other systems that are unique, that are outside of the barracks as well, because all you're doing is you're reducing down their chances.
mm,
Understand who all these other businesses are and get them to use everything because there's a golden nugget there lying for them in every single one of them. We use an analogy. Get on one train on one track and you're coming off on one stop. Now that's a pretty hard way to get a job. One way, bang, straight down the middle, and I'm going to get this job at the end. The real world doesn't work on that. You're going to see rejection after rejection after rejection. I had hundreds of rejections for jobs, hundreds. So put them on lots of trains and
mm.
lots of tracks and give them loads of different stops to get off at. And one day, because they're driven, they're going to find where that last stop is, and then they're going to find their future. But don't put them on the same train because they're all different and they all want something different and they all need something different. So use things like the FTG to allow you, without having to even come on barracks, to get that individual to where they need to be professionally and inside business, which is where the job is. And that is reality. Everything else will form around that.
Mm, absolutely. No, absolutely. And I think if people are understanding or wanting to understand why you do what you do, I think that will quite clearly show them, I suppose, the rationale and why you do what you do and why the FTG is growing from strength to strength. Because if it was just about you think about the biggest businesses that have grown, most of them aren't just purely about money. They're about actually what is the why. I always say this. There's a real good book. I would give it to lots of my coaching clients. This
Mm-hmm.
guy is Simon Sinek, and it's called
Yeah,
Start with Why. And it's always not, you don't talk about how you're doing something or what you're doing, you talk about why, what's the reason behind it. And I think that reason will really resonate with people, hopefully, who are listening. And if there is maybe, before I do finish off with some quick fire questions, one final thing for you, John, is if someone, to use your expression, is a sleepwalker, and
mm-hmm.
then we want to take them from being a sleepwalker to a hunter. If
Mm-hmm.
there's one or two few things that kind of come to your mind,
Mm-hmm.
and someone's listening, and we want to get them out that rut and get them looking forward and kind of making their transition smooth, what would you say?
Yeah. Well, if they're in transition or they're in service and they're thinking about leaving, the sleepwalker is simply somebody who's doing nothing. Now, it doesn't take too many brains, even my small brain, to realize if I'm doing nothing, I'm getting nothing. Now, the problem with the military is that you don't really need to do anything to get on, and everything's done for you. So you don't need to write CVs and you don't need to do interviews. And so the first thing is we need to professionalize them. So the first thing you need to do is you need to create your self-belief and your confidence. And the way we do that is through top class CV writing. That would be the first place I would start with anybody because you can start to paint a picture of who you really are. Now, once you realize who you really are, you start to grow a brand. This is where people like you come in. To grow a brand that the real world understands because you aren't a sergeant major anymore. And the real world doesn't understand what a sergeant major is. So you need to understand what your future is and grow the brand around that so they can see it.
Yeah.
And then you've got to start to look at your elevation, your pitches, your 30-second pitch, the way that you're interviewing, the way that we answer questions. totally different to what you do in the military. Because if you speak like you did in the military when you hit the real world, no one's going to understand what you're talking about. Align your professional development around that because you now understand your brand, you know where you're going, you've created a direction, you're now owning yourself and your future. Now you're a hunter and everyone can see it. And when you get to those levels, you're shining so brightly that it's impossible to fail. But if you're not a hunter and you do none of that and you're a sleepwalker, no one can see you. And nobody wants the person who's doing nothing. They want the person that's doing everything to create their future because they're the driven people in business that take business further forward.
Absolutely. Amen. No, I love it. I couldn't agree more with that. And I think obviously FTG will, do many things already, will go from strength to strength. And I couldn't, recommend any more, the CV services that yourself and kind of other colleagues kind of provide. No doubt they will change, evolve, in the future. But then I think the holistic approach FTG does, sorry, in terms of like that branding piece and preparing people for interviews, then obviously then very much not kind of going to jobs fairs, as you say, and getting like loads of free pens. They're coming out with actual interviews and kind of jobs out at the end of it.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, once we've owned the situation, we can then put them through what we call directional phase. And that's when business come in. You
Mm.
see, the military person pays nothing for any of this. Businesses are paying for it. That's the social value. And they're putting so much back in. But at the same time, they're getting so much back out because all of these people can then start filtering into their businesses.
Mm.
So we put on, clearly I'm not going to go into everything we do because there's so many strands to this. There's actually 10 strands into business. But a live show, which you've just kind of alluded to, is not a job fair as in what people would normally perceive.
Yeah.
Really, it is a pre-booked event in which we've brochured all of our partners and our companies so that everyone who attends knows what they are. Them individuals who are attending then pre-book which industry and which companies they want to interview with, and we set interviews up for the individuals with that company before they arrive. So it's mega efficient. They ain't no walking around. All it is people interviewing with companies they want to work for. So it's mega efficient not for the candidate alone. It's also very efficient for the business because when they turn up, they're only speaking to people who are relevant to their business, which means you're going to see way more success. And our statistics suggest to us that 1 in 3 are being offered a role within 8 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that's massive.
Mm.
Needs to
Yeah.
be better, but it's massive.
Indeed, and you can't argue with data. I think that it's a real good mix to have a bit of qualitative and quantitative data to actually show the impact people are having. And I think that really kind of speaks to it. So just to finish off, a few quick fire questions. You're a busy chap, and I'm grateful to secure you and have the time. I'm going to ask you a few quick things. So what is, and this might be rather apt, John, what is one book you would gift or recommend at the minute?
The one book I would gift would be The Making of a Hunter, which is the FTG, my new book that was only released 14 days ago.
Yeah.
Actually sold out first week, but we now have lots more books in stock. So if you would like a signed book, you can go to our website or you can go to Goodreads or Spotify or Amazon or Madison House Press is a good place to get one if you want one signed. And just buy yourself a book because all the money goes to our Shine a Light project as well, which helps people who are less advantaged when they're leaving the military, who have had real problems, veterans, suicide, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, love it. And I'm going to make sure to include links to FTG, the website, the book,
Thank
and all
you.
the rest of it in the show notes. Who would you say inspires you right now?
Oh, who inspires me? Um, oh, that's that's
I I
you
I
haven't
know
told me these questions before, so that's quite a difficult one.
I know
I
the
mean,
politically correct. I know the politically correct answer to this one. It might be Mandy, but
yeah. Well, Mandy's certainly an inspiration. She's the one that's held the family together when I've been doing whatever I wanted for the last 20 odd years of your life. So, inspirational wise, of course, would be Mandy, would be my father, things like that. But I think, and of course, the easiest answer is to say you. Um, and you do inspire a lot of the things we do, and I know a lot of the work that comes through now, and a lot of the success stories has your name included in it.
Mm,
Um, someone that inspires me, always inspires me, is a guy called Barry Rizza.
Hmm.
Um, he's actually the smallest person I know, who I met 20 odd years ago in the military. Um, but his values, he never wanes from them. He's open, he's honest, he's the hardest person I've ever known. He's the fittest person I've ever known. He's left the military now and is doing all different kinds of things. Um, but throughout my whole career, even though he would suggest he looks up to me, maybe, and he has said that, I'm really inspired by that guy.
Yeah.
And another guy called Joey Collins, who's a bit of a legend within the Raw Signals, is so top class, and those people are in my book alongside yourself, and they've been inspirational through my whole life and my
Amazing.
whole career, and the why I stayed in the military, and I still speak to them every day now.
Amazing. I think I might have even met both of them.
You have,
they ring a
yeah.
bell. Barry Rizzo, I think I've seen him perhaps on stage.
He did,
Was it?
yeah, he did
Yeah.
the wood thing.
And then Joey Collins, I do recognise. I met him at Manchester at the
That's
jobs
right,
fair.
that's correct. Yeah,
Yeah. So I do
top
recognise.
class people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, John, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you, and hopefully, you'll be surprised actually. I've had quite a lot of military people who I've worked through the FTG.
Yeah,
I've said they'd love to find out more about your story and what you've done. And I know you were a bit hesitant. Well, what's he going to ask me? But hopefully, you enjoyed that as well. But it's a pleasure to have you, mate.
yeah. Thanks very much, and can't wait to work with you for a long time yet.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, thank you all for listening. That's another episode of Catapult Your Career, delving into another career in the military in this case. Please continue to listen. I'm going to have links in the show notes for the FTG, where you can buy a book. And if you yourself want help support in terms of transitioning your own career, whether you're from the military, blue light workers, or teachers, I'm here also to support. So thank you all, and I'll see you on the next one.